Hey, ta-da! Good morning, artists! Happy Tuesday. It is a bright and sunny day again. I'm gonna get hot. So stay cool as much as you can. Stay safe still, always, of course. We guys have a assignment due by Friday. If you were enjoying vacation yesterday and missed the stream, that's fine. Just make sure you go back to classroom and check out the new assignment. I have my example up here. You're doing that little outlining of a odd shape and then turning it into something. And I highly recommend a creature just because it tends to be the most fun and you can kind of do a lot of different stuff with it. So, as we announced yesterday, we had a winner for our paper crane contest. She sent me her request for what she would like to do for to have drawn on the stream, and she asked for a portrait. So I'm going to be doing a semi-realistic, as much as my style will allow, portrait, and we're going to see. I'm not sure yet. I think we're going to do a little bit. We're going to start with pencil. And then maybe we'll go from there. Maybe we'll add a little color. Not sure yet. We'll see. It'll be a surprise for everybody. So you guys can kind of watch along. If you feel like following along and drawing the portrait along with me, that would be fun too. And just for, being able to practice doing more faces. So let me spin you around right here and we'll get to it. Whoosh! Alrighty. So for now, we'll keep a nice top-down view. We're going to keep it pretty high since it's a taller paper. There we go. I'm working with some slightly nicer drawing paper than normal. It's actually from a drawing sketchbook, so it's not just your normal copy paper. It's a little bit thicker, which is nice. And I've got my reference picture up in front of me. Now, she said that this was a request from her mother, that her mother would like a portrait drawn. So here we go. Now, realistic style is usually not my forte. I'm much more of a cartoonist, but we're going to pull it off anyway. So you can see, just like when I do my cartoons, I still start off doing this plus sign reference, just to start and get the head shape right. And then I start figuring out where the eyes are going to go. Everything done really lightly right now, just to start and get everything in the right spot. Start getting some hints of where the nose is. Now, things I look for when I'm doing a portrait is I'm looking for where do the eyes relate to each other? What's their shape like? How big they are. Especially paying attention to the space between them. This was something that I was taught by one of my teachers, was that the space between the eyes is usually about as big as how wide the eyes are, usually, average. And that really only works for if you're facing mostly forward. If you're turned too far to the side, that rule doesn't really apply as much. But just for the sake of symmetry, I can hear my dog barking at neighbors again. So I look at where does the nose line up beneath the eye, whether it's directly under the corner like this side or a little bit to the side. She's got a little bit of a head tilt. So the side of the face here is a little bit closer. Get down to where the lips are. Now, I always start with drawing the overall head shape, but that almost always, especially if I'm working with real people, that almost always changes once I get the face in. It's more like a placeholder, just to help me get started. I'll probably bounce back and forth between different areas too. So I guess if you were trying to follow along, it's a little bit harder. Just because I'll see one thing that I'm like, okay, I'm going to go and do this part now. Like I'm going to do the eyebrows now. But then I'll notice something might be a bit off in another area. And then I have to go back and be like, oh no, that doesn't look quite right. And I'll change it up. All right. So now I'm going to clean up the face a little bit. I think what I'd like to do, because the picture she sent me has a little bit of color in it, so I think I'd like to try and get a little color going. Just hints of it though. Matching skin color can be super tricky depending on the paint. I had one year where one of my art teachers was kind of joking that whenever people do portraits, they tend to make parts of the face end up looking like their own face, just because that's a face you're most familiar with. It's the one you see the most in the mirror, in pictures and all of that. And I'd argue in some cases that, yes, I have probably been guilty of that, where there will be parts of a face that I'll be trying to draw and it'll just come out looking more like me than I intended it to. But I'm going to try and not do that here, because this lovely student does not look like me. So far, so good. Just trying to get a little bit more of the face shape figured out before we move on. She's got some lovely dark eyes, so there's not going to end up being too much detail. Hey. So now, she's got her lovely scarf on as well. I'll say it's definitely been an interesting development starting at my new school. We have a lot of students of Middle Eastern descent. Several of the girls wearing the headscarves. And now normally when I'm doing my portrait lessons, you know, we go right into talking about hairline and such. And it's something that I've had to add into my lessons to talk about where the hairline is, but also how that works in reference to the head wraps, because you know the scarves are meant to cover up the hair. So far so good. Just gonna get the general shape in first. This is a very beautiful scarf she's wearing too, and I feel bad because it's got so much cool little jewels and details, and I know that my skill is not such that it's going to be able to capture all of that. But we'll do the best we can. Okay. First sketch, not too bad. Go and do a little bit of cleaning up. I actually need to make this a little bit taller. Yep. But that's why we use pencil and why we sketch lightly. That's better. It's a nice little kind of ribbon detail here. And then it gets into some more stuff. All right. I think we're definitely going to be using a combination, though, of media to get this looking beautiful. So I want to clean up as much of the pencil as I can, because my plan, I think, is I'm going to be using a little bit of watercolor on this. watercolor because I can keep that really, really soft, and it will really suit this picture, I think. And since watercolor pretty much goes right into the paper, it's going to let me come back later with the pencil and being able to add some appropriate shading, which I think will really be nice for this, is to use the graphite to do some of the shades. Okay, so I'm using nicer than your typical watercolor set. This was something given to me years ago and just never really used. It was dated 2000. Yeah, the paint still works. I've been using it for other stuff. It's a little different than what you might see in school most of the time. Those you'll have like the little smaller palettes, and it's got every individual color, and you have to add water to make it work. Now these are already kind of liquid form. Ta-da! Yeah, so it's already in a bit of a liquid form, but you still want to add water to make it work. So we're going to get a little bit of some pink. I want to get a tiny bit. Actually, yeah, it's okay. Let's start with it. You get just a little bit of some other color going in here too. Get a little bit of this yellowish color. And a little bit of red. We're just going to be mixing a whole bunch of different color in here. And we'll see how it goes. And I'm going to add a little bit of the white. Now the white, not so much to make it lighter, because that's what the water is for. By adding some white to it, it'll help to create more of a pastel tone. It will desaturate the colors a little bit, so we don't want it to be too much just yet. Okay, got that. And now we're gonna add some water. We want a good amount of water in here. Probably be easier just to, I mean, in some cases you could try dumping, but this is a big bowl of water and I didn't want to dump it. I want to control how much water is in here. Also just want to get everything damp in general so that it has time to kind of break up. Let the paint spread a little bit. And it'll help keep the paint from drying while I'm going between the two colors. All right. Okay, so I've got this really rich kind of color right now. Yeah, it's a little bit more saturated than I would like. We're going to add a little bit more of the white to it. See if we can't soften it a bit. That's getting better. I'm not looking to add a whole. Was exciting. Let me make sure I'm back on the air here. Holy cow. Sorry about that. The problems of using your phone for streaming purposes. That was a severe weather test. All right, where is since we're doing something as important as a personal portrait for a student. Perfect. I wanted to test out my paint first. I'm going to use plenty of water with this. I'm not going to worry too much yet about like the eyebrows. Probably mixed up more paint than I need, but what you gotta do to get the right colors. There we go. I wonder if they're doing this weather test to they're anticipating there being some bad weather coming up. I know they've said there's a slight chance of some storms today, very slight, and more into Thursday and Friday. Hopefully not too severe. Okay. Now, let's see. We're gonna be a little tricky. We're gonna try it though. I'm getting just a tiny bit of this. It's called Payne's Gray, which really is more like kind of a bluish black color. I barely put any there though, because I don't want a super dark color. I want to get something that probably even be a little bit more than that, but let's see how this works first. Yeah, I can use a little bit more. Very fine line between using up too much paint or not enough. I want to get just a tiny bit of a shadow going. Just very slight hint, just to kind of help soften up this peachy color. And even if I'm going to go back and add in some shadows and such using the pencil, I want to have just a little bit of a darker tone in the paint as well, just so that it will help the pencil out. So tiny bits of paint, lots of water. I'm just going to get a little bit of white, just a touch. Not too much water because I want it to be a little bit thicker. I'm just going to kind of sneak in the eye here. We do a little bit of the white so that when I add a little bit of the gray in the shadowed areas, it will help to spread a little bit more. It's the white of the eye, but it's never perfectly white all the way around. It's pretty good. Not too much. Alright, we'll let the skin part dry for a little bit. I'm going to start working into the outer areas. I'm just turning this around so I can get this pink color a little bit closer. She's got on this very pretty pale pink outfit. Hey, no dripping. I actually know this outfit too. She's worn it to school a few times over the course of the 2 years that I've been her teacher. And you guys know what a fan I am of color. So someone coming in an all pink coordinating outfit is pretty amazing. So I'm just going to give it kind of an all over tone first. And then I'll go back in and do a little more. Hopefully it's not getting picked up by the recording, but where my little art station here is situated in my basement, it's on the same side that faces where my neighbor's very old air conditioner is. I tend to hear her air conditioner kick on more than I hear ours. Super nice and pink. Tea break. Got my actual mug of tea today. I'm having cinnamon. I know it's a little bit hot to be having things like tea, but I wanted tea. And my basement's actually pretty cool. There's definitely a range of air between our basement, our first floor, and our second floor. So I'm going to start sneaking in some little darker tones here and there to start with. Just to try and help establish where the shadows might be falling. We'll get some darker shades in there too in a bit. Hard to believe there's still only a few more weeks left of the school year. It's felt very strange. It feels like it's kind of been forever since we've been put in lockdown. It's like on one hand it's been forever, on the other hand it seemed very fast. It's a very odd sensation for sure. I'm going to sneak a little bit of this pink. There we go. All right, now we're going to go back to our grayish tone. And start sneaking that in a little bit. A little shadow area there. That's good. I want to creep it just a little bit right around the edges, just to help establish the shadows even more. I'm kind of using it right over the pencil lines so that it kind of helps to soften those as well. I'm gonna have to brave the store again later today. Been doing pretty good about getting groceries that have lasted for 2 weeks. But it's time to go in and get some fresh fruit for sure. It's probably been one of the things I've missed most, because most of the time, especially like when I was still going to school and stuff, being able to just pop by the grocery store on the way home, be like, well, you need some fruit, you need 1 or 2 items, and then you can buy some extra fruit. Since that, tends to go bad so quickly, you gotta do it right away. So we buy things like, bananas for breakfast, and then, berries and whatnot to go with our meals. Save like apples and everything for when we're starting to run out. So I always know when it's time to really be hitting the grocery store, because I'm like, oh man, I feel like I've been eating a ton of apples. Oh yeah. It's a little bit dark there. That's better. So this thing with watercolors, you can layer it. Once it's dried a little bit, you can add more of a color back over it. Or even just add a little more water to help soften it up. Not too dark there. There we go. Don't want it too dark on the lips, but I do want to give that impression of the shadow as well. Just adding a little more pink just to help soften those a bit. That's nice. That's nice. this skin tone and just creep it right in on the eyebrows, because I think we're going to do most of that with the pencil. We'll get a little bit of a shadow in there with the black, but we won't be able to make it look quite enough like hair with just this paint that I'm using. I mean, if I had like a super minuscule brush, maybe. So one of the tricky things you gotta do with watercolor too is the paint will tend to blend and bleed into each other if it's a wet surface. So if you're working on one area, like I wanted this area to be a little bit darker, use a little bit more of this shadowy color. If I did that while the skin was still too wet, it would just bleed right over, and we don't want that. So you work on one area, let that area dry a bit, work on a different one. Okay, so for these eyes, just got very dark eyes. So we're gonna get a little bit of this, it's called yellow ochre. And I'm gonna mix it up with this black and see if we can't come up with a better, darker color. Not quite dark enough, not quite brown enough. A little black. And let's add, there we go, let's add a little bit of this burnt sienna, a bit of a brownish color. It's getting better. I think I'm going to sneak just a little bit of brown off on the side. And we're going to have a little mixing party. Okay, so I'm going to start off with this. A little less water on the brush for this part. Let me actually grab a smaller brush for this. There we go. Sneaking it in the other side now. So this is a pretty strong brown. Her eye color is definitely a lot darker than this. But what I want to do is I first want to have this kind of warmer brown tone to start. And then we'll sneak in some of that darker color too. Okay. just going to let that start mixing. I said the brown did not come out quite as strongly, so we might have to sneak a little more brown in there. Or, well, that's actually looking much closer to her color. So the other side's just a little bit too much brown. So we'll sneak a little bit more of our dark color in. Compromise. There we go. So I'm using a dry brush to try and get a little bit of the paint taken away. You obviously can't erase it, but if we can get a little bit of the extra water off of there, then we can go back in and have a little better control over the color. It's just a little bit too brown on the one side. So by taking away a little bit of the paint, it's a little bit easier now to go in and add more to it to get it the right shade. And we're going to need a little bit of this black back. I mean, it's called gray, but it's black. It's pretty much just black. It becomes gray by adding the water to it. Now this is probably gonna blend together a little bit, but that's okay. This one eye is still there we go. Just doesn't want to match up very well. But we got it. That'll work. So far, not too bad. Just sneaking in a few more little gray touches. Since we're getting close to the end anyway, probably have to let this dry really well overnight and then come back in the morning and see about doing a little more shading to it. Shading on the nose is always so important, and it's always so tricky. This brush is too small for this job here. There we go. Just gonna sneak just a tiny bit right up here. I think this will be it for today then. We'll sneak in things like eyelashes and that tomorrow. See, that's what we're talking about with the bleeding. Plus, sometimes the paint will lighten up a little bit once it's dry, so it'll be good to let it finish drying up, and then we can see where everything's at. All right, that's where we're gonna pause it for today. I'm gonna go clean out my tray here. Here's the nice thing, is the paint part pops right out. Up, up. And I can go wash my tray out. All right, so we're gonna leave this off here for now, and then tomorrow we're gonna keep working on finishing this up, and then we shall see. Maybe we'll be on to working some more on our our planet people that we've left off for a little while. I won't swing you around today. I think we're pretty good for this for now. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands. I'm gonna go wash my hands. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day.